Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. And for this episode, it's part 2 of our collected interviews leading up to the Rhode Island Author Expo, happening December 11th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Crown Plaza in Warwick, Rhode Island. First up, it's author Apryl Scott talking about her recently released collection of poetry, The Book of Jade. And after that, it's Elizabeth Devlin for her book, Home Waters, which combines family drama and scientific thriller. I'm talking to debut author Apryl Scott for her new book, The Book of Jade. I gotta say, amazing name. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to talk to you about this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So reading up on the book, I saw that this sort of came about from a sort of like a spiritual awakening you had.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little more about that and how it kind of like fueled you as a writer?
So, honestly, I want to say halfway through the first quarter of the journey, which you're not actually aware that you're on most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of a what they would call a coming to Jesus moment. Like, I know what they mean now when they say that. Like, something happened in my life, and I was just like, oh my God, I need help. Like, what just happened and why? You know? And you go to all the cliche places for answers, and nothing worked. Nothing seemed right. And in that moment, you're just like, okay, maybe let's try something different, you know? And that's what happened. And I started to get answers. And then I started to get even more interested, you know? It's kind of how it happens, right? And then I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of refinding myself, you know? And then realizing that I'm also here to help others find themselves, you know? And it's just been so magical, and I'm so grateful to be able to share it.
Excellent. Now, what would you say preceded like the coming to Jesus moment? Did something happen, or was it more just like your life kind of changed?
Well, once this one particular awakening happened, it was I realized that, or I learned that there are many awakenings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are many smaller ones, and that I've been going through a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
yeah. So that's what had happened, and then this one particular moment was just what I know they call a tower moment. Like, it was just something that really broke my heart, you know. And we are programmed to perceive that as like kind of a negative thing, but
Mm-hmm.
in light of things, that is exactly what it's meant to do. You know, you have to break through walls to let the light in, and that's exactly what happened. And it lit up my life, you know, because it drove me to find the answers as to why these things were happening in my life, because I'm not a bad person, you know what I mean? And when spiritually, you know, karma says you do good things happen to you, right? And just morally, logistically, logically, you think you do good things, you do good work, and good things happen for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why are these perceivable negative things happening to me, you know? And the go-to answers that people usually go to, you know, I don't have enough money, or I'm not working hard enough, didn't seem right. It didn't fit, because I'm working hard, you know, and it shouldn't always be all about the money, right? So there's got to be another factor to this equation. What am I missing? You know, what am I missing? And I went seeking, right? I went seeking, and I found.
That's a heck of like a rabbit hole to dive into.
Yeah.
How long would you say you kind of spent just like exploring things?
So I've been exploring things my whole life.
Okay.
Because part of this major awakening was reflection, self-reflection. Like, where have I been? Who was I as that little kid? And I've always been this, like, wanderer, you know, pretending like I'm a gypsy in the backyard. And I was always an introvert by myself until I was taught that wasn't a normal thing, you know? I was surrounded by people that were always around people, you know, we're always partying and always having fun. And even though that wasn't a immediate natural thing for me, it kind of grew on me. And now I realize that it was a huge distraction, because I had amassed all these things and people in my life, and I was so unhappy. Does that sound good? Sound like a few people we know, right?
It sounds like everyone we know,
right?
actually.
Exactly,
yeah.
right.
You have the stuff.
Here I am pointing all my fingers at these people as to why my life is a mess, and it's like, wait a minute, let me take a look.
Yeah.
Let me take a look at myself because I'm seeing some similarities here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually, some of the poems that are in this book, I wrote in high school. Like, that's when I realized, oh my God, I was having an awakening then, wasn't I? Like, I couldn't stop. I had to get it out of my head, you know? And so the book is kind of like a progression of, like, the beginning to this point in the journey, because it's one of three, you know? Yeah, the second one's funny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How did this spiritual awakening kind of tie into writing? Did you write a lot before?
I've always written. I've always been a writer, and you know, God or people in your life bring opportunities into your life to find these gifts or find these things that you love. And I took a writing class in high school called creative writing, and I was just like, oh, hey, I'm good at this. You know, like, I like this. This is making me happy. And then I've just always kind of journaled. And then my daughter's father passed away, and I made a new friend, and it was originally supposed to be a gift. And it was like, I put my heart and soul into it, and I felt like, this isn't it. Like, there's something more to this, you know? And so I kept writing, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to publish this, you know? So 2017, that was like 6 years. So for like 6 years, I've been like really interested in just like really finding my way and mastering the art that is the journey, you know? But yeah, so like my whole life, I'm like 35 now, so 35 years, but for that 6, it was like I've made more progress in 6 years than I have in the past 30.
Okay.
You know,
the Apryl that you were before this and the Apryl that you are now, are those two people anything alike?
They're very much alike. Mm-hmm. They are the same person. Mm-hmm. You know, I am the same person. However, I've recalibrated my energy. Balanced it out a whole lot, you know. You
sound very balanced.
Thank you.
You really do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate, because it took a lot of work, like blood, sweat, and tears.
Sure.
Literally.
It always does.
Literally.
Yeah. I think that any kind of major like spiritual change or like personality change where you come out of it a better person, you have to go through a lot of hardship to get there. It's never like you wake up, oh, I realized this thing about me, and then you're just moving on. It's always like a major shift has to happen to get there.
Yes. This one saying that I recently heard, what do they say? Oh, it doesn't take calm seas to make good sailors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've never heard that before, but that's for this month. That's my one. That's my quote.
And I think that the people who go through like hard times and come out of it better for it, they kind of wish, oh, I wish that didn't have to happen. I wish I'd never like lose my best friend or my house burned down or what have you. But it's like you wouldn't have achieved those things if those things didn't happen. As horrible as it is, they were required for you to get there.
Exactly. And again, it's all a matter of perception. Like, this world is so magical, and there's so much about it that we don't understand yet. Mm-hmm. And when you really look at all of the factors, even the ones that are hard to accept, it just makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. And it makes living so much more enjoyable. That's the key. That's the key. Not just to get through it because you understand it, you know, but to be able to enjoy it is the key.
Mm-hmm. Going from writing to publishing, obviously a big step. Were you at all hesitant, especially because with poetry you are sharing so much of yourself?
Hesitant? No. Writing blind? Yes, absolutely. All I knew is that I felt like I was being guided by spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, the energy of source, the universe, to publish this, because I even told the publishers, because I was like, I don't get it, but I'm going to do it because I've learned my lesson. You know, I've learned my lesson of not listening to my intuition and where did it get me? Looking for more answers. So I'm just going to do this and see what happens. And I'm enjoying it. You know, that was step number 1. Like, let me figure out how to enjoy my life every day, all day. You know, if not anything else.
Exactly.
You know?
Now, you published this this July.
Yes.
So right in the middle of, I think it was like the third wave, I believe, of COVID. So obviously you couldn't do like a book tour. What was it like releasing it when you couldn't do all the normal book release things?
Well, I'm going to steal your word. It was normal for me.
Okay.
Because I had never done it before, you know, so there weren't any preconceived expectations or notions, you know. And aside from all the other work I did about releasing expectations so that I don't have to live with disappointment. Also part of the programming.
Okay. How'd it feel to have this like in your hands?
Like gold.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll
like
bet.
Gold, better than gold. You know, it was priceless. You know, just to, because I'm an Aries, so one of the Aries traits, cliche Aries traits, is that we start things and don't finish them. But when you start recalibrating that energy so that it's balanced, this was something that I finished. You know, so I had already accomplished something. You know, and I told them, like, even if I help one person, even if I don't know that I helped one person with this book, it was all worth it.
How would this book help someone? What do you see as the way it can do that?
Honestly, I asked Spirit about it. I said, hey, Spirit, how's this supposed to help people? And they give me, like, pictures and little words, and they said it's supposed to be kind of like a chicken soup for the soul kind of vibe. You know, it's like an activation code. You know, like I said, it starts at the beginning, and the beginning kind of just preps you for the rest of the book, and people will resonate with different poems in there, and it's kind of just a, hey, have a laugh, or hey, you're not alone, or, you know, and maybe you'll learn something from this, you know, about yourself or about other people.
So there isn't one, like, singular message. It's more like it'll affect everyone differently.
It's a compilation, exactly, and it's supposed to, because everybody's different. Everyone's got different programming. Everyone's at different places on their own journeys.
Have you gotten any feedback from folks who have, like, read the book and how it kind of impacted them?
Oh yeah,
All right.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what propels you forward. You know, is to know that, okay, I did help that one person. You know what I mean, with that one page. You know what I mean, with those few verses, those couple of lines. You know, even before I came here to see you, I actually had an emergency meeting with 2 different clients, you know, having miscommunication issues, like, and now I'm here talking about it, like, even more positive energy to propel into this book, to just propel into the universe, so that, you know, it's a great vibe.
I love it. Let's talk about subject matter. What are some of the themes that you cover in the book?
Oh, gosh. Love, communication, relationships, grief, just random artistic aesthetic appeals, music, self-reflection, the ego, just different things, you know.
Okay. Now, I know that, of course, like, poetry is not like writing a novel. It is far fewer words.
Right.
But when it comes to, like, writing it, do you, like, go back and, like, make changes, or is it more like what you write is what you kind of stick with?
Absolutely. You have to, I do edit what I write, but in the way of when you're it's called automatic writing. You're just kind of going with it. You're not even realizing what you're doing. There do tend to be typos, you know, so, and able to communicate clearly with others, certain things have to be in order, you know what I mean? And that is the integration, you know what I mean, between the spirit and the earth realm, you know. Earth is putting the period at the end of your sentence, and spirit is making sure you're getting your message across, you know.
Any of your poems which are personal favorites of yours? I know that's like trying to, like, pick, like, your, like, favorite child or favorite pet.
Right. So one of the shorter ones that is one of my favorites is it Hard Like Diamonds? May I?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Your book.
Oh, this is a good one. Just because I know that quite a few people can attest to this. It's not such a happy one. However, like I said, it does cover many different feelings and emotions. So this one's called Scream. And actually someone else, while I was in school, some classmates had to put together a podcast, and they asked me to be, like, their talent person, you know, to be interviewed. And they wanted to do it about this book.
Nice.
And they actually picked out this poem to go over. So you were just asking me about that, feedback on the book. So this one's called Scream. I scream, but There is no sound, no air in either direction to be found. Beating hard in my chest, my head churns round. Without rest, exhausted, I recoil. Simple, but
it's definitely got a punch to it.
Yeah, sincere. Like when you're going through it, it makes so much sense. You know, and the writing is more of like a physical representation. You know, like it's like a painting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's something that is to be observed and not necessarily read. If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, this one's kind of funny. I wrote, so after her father passed away, I started working at a bar. I had done private hospice care for 6 years, so yeah. And the woman I'd taken care of passed away at the age of 101, so I decided to take a little mental break, you know.
101, like a champion.
Right, and more spiritual funniness. Her birthday is the day after mine. She's April 18th. And I'm the 17th, and she was born in 1913. Pretty sure that was the year before or after the Titanic sank. Yes.
After, I believe, yeah.
Right,
yep.
Right around that time. Yes. Crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I wrote this while sitting at the bar because I just couldn't believe it's a lifestyle. It's really a lifestyle, and the chatter that goes on is mind-boggling. So I wrote this. Current events. These current events, that was one of the last conversations I had, was about current events. The events of the day, oh my, I cannot convey my distaste for this confusion. These current events, like heat through hot grates, I vent. These current events shock me, sway me, cause me to display behavior unbecoming of a lady, such as myself. These current events leave a foul stench, one that cannot be stifled. It is irrefutable. These current events, these ordeals, occasionally in life, shit is just unbelievably unreal.
You have a great reading voice.
Thank you.
You really do. Have you had the chance to do like public readings of any of your work?
No, like I said, I'm kind of a newbie, so I've been trying to get into it, but I'm haven't, like you said, with the COVID and everything.
Sure,
just,
yeah.
like one step at a time, just trying to find the right avenues.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I still haven't even found the one I actually want to read you.
But these are all really good.
Oh, I found it.
Go for it.
And it's so funny because I thought of another line from this poem, and I was like, is that two different poems or is it the same poem? It is the same poem. It's called Hard Like Diamonds. The beginning was hard, atlas tricks on my shoulders, gravity compressing me small, till I shine like diamonds. Simple, but I was in a really tough spot.
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
And it just makes so much, it means more to me now, you know, and that's what it's meant to do for others, you know, empower them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's kind of the overall gain from like reading the work as you become a little more empowered from it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the more and more you read it, the more and more empowered you become. Mm-hmm. I myself reread it all the time. I actually just recently, because I have a YouTube channel as well where I upload videos that about my spiritual experiences. I do storytelling. You said I do storytelling on my channel. And I just recently uploaded a video. My point was... See, you're not the only one who does that.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. I have no idea where I was going with that.
Well, why don't we come back to that in a little bit?
Okay, yeah.
Let's talk
Moving
a little
on.
more about the channel, because I did read about that. And like you said, you kind of like share the stories. How did you come to becoming like a vlogger?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I would love to put it out there. So it's actually going to be the title of my third book, and it's supposed to be a funny kind of God for Dummies kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And but how it came about was because in 2017, when I had this massive awakening, actually started watching more YouTube videos. I was watching more YouTube videos, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be somebody that was able to guide other people and that I could reach more people through this avenue is what happened. That's why I started uploading the videos.
Okay.
And also I not only I was guided as well. I got messages from these other people that I was watching telling me to do this. But again, I can't remember. I'm too excited. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I'm having way too much fun.
I can tell.
But yeah,
Now-
that's how it happened. I wanted to be one of those people.
All right. So in your videos, do you just kind of talk about your own life? Or you talk about like other things?
Yeah, I talk about my own life, things that happen to me or things that I say, and they all tie into spirit, you know? I get messages and things happen and they're funny and they're sad and yeah.
What's been the response from the YouTube community?
People are watching.
Good.
That was
Good.
that because I mean again
That's
with
the first
the
step,
throwing
really.
exactly throwing the fishing rod out there, and like I said, if I'm not trying to become YouTube famous, but it's about reaching the people that are seeking, you know, and I truly believe that they will be guided to me if they're meant to be, just as I was guided to others that helped me.
So you've got your book, you've got your YouTube channel, and you also have your own. I believe you have your own like spiritual guidance company too,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, Wrestless Communications.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do also do guidance on the side. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a busy life.
It is a busy life, but the reward for winning battles is more battles, you know? So there's always work to be done.
Okay.
But when you love what you do, you never work a day, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I enjoy it.
So now that we can have like live events, we're seeing the returns of expos and conventions and such. Do you see yourself getting out there doing like a book tour, doing like readings?
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. And I mean, I've tailored my life to the point where I can do that. You know, like that was part of the journey at first was being more about myself. You know, I did a lot of putting effort and energy into others and things that I thought were best for me, and it turned out they weren't. So I decided to ask for help, and when I asked Spirit for help, they were like, hey, this is good for you, and I'm like, I trust you, I believe you, and it turned out to be great because I feel good. So
Excellent. What is next for you?
What is next for me? Well, I know that I'm getting my master's degree. I start that.
Is that all?
Yeah. So I start that in January. Actually, my master's in clinical mental health counseling.
Wow.
Yeah, because even though I do run the spiritual business on the side, I know that I can reach even more people that way in a different way, from a different perspective, you know. So, because that is one of my gifts is communication. So.
And more books too?
Yes, and more books. And the second book and the third book. And actually, the second book is pretty much already written. It just, I have to get it all formatted and put together. Yeah.
All right. Looking back on your life and where you are now, does it surprise you the different directions you've gone in?
Surprise me? No. Does it look different than I thought? Yes. Yes. Like I said, I've always been kind of a wanderer, but they say that those that wander are not always lost, right? And
exactly.
I now know that even though I felt lost many a times, that I wasn't lost and I wasn't alone, you know, and I'm grateful that I wasn't.
Absolutely. Well, Apryl, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been great to learn about you and your journey in the book. And folks, definitely pick up your copy. It's an absolutely amazing read. But where do folks go to learn more about you and check out the work?
You can go to my website, Apryl with a Y, yvonnescott.com.
Whew, we are almost there, folks. And joining me now is one of the
many, many, many writers that you can meet there. Elizabeth Devlin joins me. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
All right. So there is so much to talk about with regards to your book, Home Waters. But before we do that, I want to talk about the actual event itself. Now, for some, this is their first time being back before people. What's been like for the past year and a half with no expos, events, things like that?
Well, I did actually do, I have done a few events.
Mm-hmm.
I did the Reader-Writer Conference that was up in Boxborough, Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
in October,
Mm-hmm.
which was a lot of fun. And one of the venues where my books are sold locally is called Gansett Goods in Narragansett. And they did a book signing for me. When they heard my book was nominated for 2 national awards, they said, "Oh, wouldn't you like to do a book signing?" Which was great and went well. So that was a lot of fun.
All right. Now, so last year's Author Expo was totally virtual.
Yep.
What are you looking forward to most when it comes to just being back at this huge event?
I think it's going to be really fun to talk directly to readers.
Mm-hmm.
I found last year I did it virtually, and that had some pluses because friends of mine and fans of mine from other areas were able to participate. But it's nice to actually be able to talk directly to people about your book and give them a flavor for what it's about so they can see if it's a fit for them.
Exactly. And I think also just feeling the energy of being back there,
Exactly.
Seeing your table all set up with your banners and your books, and seeing everyone else all set up, and seeing people just kind of wander around, checking things out. I feel that constant flow, basically.
I think you have articulated it perfectly.
And you'll also be doing a panel too, as well.
Yeah, the panel is actually the first one of the day, so hopefully people will come early enough. I think it's 9:45, and it's called Beyond the Google Search.
Ooh.
And basically, I and another author and a moderator are going to talk about some of the unusual things we did researching our books and why that's so important to get the details right.
Okay. That's, I think, a very big topic because, especially these days, I think most people just go on Wikipedia or wherever else to kind of do the research. But why is it so important to go past all that?
Well, in my opinion, and certainly for my book, I'm a huge fan of environmental issues, and particularly those related to the ocean. And because of that, I contribute 25% of my royalties to Save the Bay. I wanted to be sure that I got the details right, because if you're going to write a book that you hope people will take a serious problem seriously, you better get the details right, because certainly people are going to find out if you don't. And then you've lost all credibility, and what you're trying to do is completely screwed up.
There's always that one person who will point out the mistakes you make every time.
Absolutely true. And who can blame them? I mean,
Exactly.
I love reading books where I learn something. And I tried to write a book where you could have fun with a fun story and a bit of romance and a family story, but that also had some serious science in it without driving you nuts.
Exactly.
The best compliment I got after my book first came out was from a fellow writer who said, "I hate reading science because I don't understand science, and I understood this, and it made sense to me, and I was so excited." And I'm like, wow, I'm even more excited.
So
that's a great
made
compliment.
Science fun.
I made it fun and clear, and I think I had a big advantage in doing so. And here's my advantage: I'm not a scientist either. My background is in medieval history. I studied, medieval manuscripts and history. So me doing a book which had a huge element of science in it meant I had to learn it from scratch. And so in the process, I knew what other people would not know. And consequently, I couched it in a way. I kept having to ask question after question to understand it myself. And once I got it clear, I let my characters ask some of the same questions I'd asked.
Ah, very good. And you also work with the experts, too. You worked with the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography for your book.
I did.
So you got to go straight to, like, the tops in the field. How did that help you when it came to, like, really understanding but also, like, crafting your story?
Well, the story of actually the research of it is sort of interesting because when I first had the idea for this book, I had shortly before that just finished teaching at the Naval War College in Newport. And so I still had the sort of academic connections in those days that I don't really have now. So I contacted someone, the dean at the time of the Graduate School of Oceanography, and asked him if he would put me in touch with one of the oceanographers so I could ask them questions about the idea for this book. And he very kindly arranged that for me. And so I met with Dr. Steve DeHunt, who's still there on the faculty, and he said, well, why don't we go have a bite of lunch and we can chat over that. And so we did, and I was explaining to him that I had the idea for my main character, who was a sort of Jacques Cousteau-type figure by the name of Becket Fallon. I knew quite a bit about his personal story, but I didn't know what the environmental problem was because I didn't have enough background in the science of it. So that's what I went to him to help me with. And so we started chatting about it, and he suggested a couple of ideas. And I said, well, but the problem is those ideas you just described to me sound insoluble. I mean, this is a novel where I'm hoping for a happy ending here. It doesn't have to be, all perfect in the end, but I think there should be some hope that we can do something about this problem.
Exactly. I think an ending where they all died horribly is not really...
No.
It's not really catchy.
No, not the route for success in popular fiction. But more importantly, if you want to inspire other people to look at these kind of problems and perhaps help deal with them, we all need some hope that we can make a difference. And so that had a lot to do with it. Anyway, as he and I were chatting about this, I looked around, and I had about 8 or 10 oceanographers had kind of been overhearing this, and they started chiming in. And pretty soon we had this huge brainstorming session with 10 experts, and that's where I got the idea for my plot.
That is so cool.
It was absolutely fascinating.
So they were all just like, oh, what about this? What about this?
Yes.
Do you account for that? How
Yes,
about this?
that's exactly it.
Wow.
That's exactly it.
So the problem du jour for this book is a toxic algae, which basically threatens all of the East Coast. How close is something like this to reality, I guess?
Well, it's a potential threat to the entire East Coast.
Sure.
But it starts in Narragansett Bay. And yes, it could happen. And that was one of the things I asked the oceanographers about. How would this toxic algae, which there's a part of the book that doesn't take place in Narragansett Bay, a small part, but the origin of this algae is the other side of the world. So how did it get to Narragansett Bay? And I don't want to give away too many details about that, but the oceanographers assured me there were a number of ways. You have sailing boats that are circling the Earth who might bring it back. There's a lot of repair facilities in Narragansett Bay that work with racing boats that come from all over the world. And they could have remnants of this algae on their hull, and then when they're in the quiet waters, it could expand. And the issue for the algae in this book is that it's not that it's toxic, that there are a lot of existing toxic algae that are problems, but wouldn't necessarily decimate a whole area.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an invasive species. It's like an invasive plant that takes over all of the local ones and completely crowds them out. That's what the potential of this is.
So this sounds perfectly possible in real life.
Yes.
That's scary.
Very scary. Very scary.
Wow. So how did how did having the experts, how did that help you to really understand this? Were they able to kind of break it down for you in the more layman's terms?
Yes, that's exactly what they did. And then once they had, I went home from this session, which lasted a couple of hours, and I was so excited. And then as soon as I got home, I started writing every detail I could remember from what they told me. And then I researched it further to better understand it. There are some parallels with red tide. And, of course, there's a lot of data on that. Mm-hmm. But this is invasive as opposed to a red tide. Mm-hmm. And so I did all the research, and then I basically wrote up the key points, and then I emailed back to Dr. DeHont to be sure I had everything right. And he fine-tuned a couple pieces for me and gave me a couple other things that I needed to understand better. And then I basically had my blueprint for that part of the story.
What was his final take on this in terms of the threat of the algae?
Well, that isn't actually his specialty.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. But he seemed fascinated with the whole thing and was very supportive. So I can't thank him enough.
It would be amazing if from this discussion one of the other students there wrote this whole research paper on invasive algae species.
Well, a number of people have expertise in this at the University of Rhode Island. And I've actually, I don't know how many people know this, but the Graduate School of Oceanography, it's usually called, as I know you know, URI/GSO, which is Graduate School of Oceanography. And it's one of the 5 top places in the world for oceanography.
All right.
And they offer public lectures and workshops quite frequently. And I've gone over to a couple related to toxic algae.
Wow.
Because the idea for this book I had quite a long time ago and wrote an initial draft, and then only the last couple of years I took it back up and rewrote the whole thing and then got it out.
So at this point, you are probably an expert on all things toxic algae.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
Right.
I know my own limitations.
Fair enough.
But I was careful to be accurate in what I put in the book.
All right. So we've talked about the threat. We've talked about the setting. Now let's talk about your main character, Becket Fallon. He has lost his son, thrown himself into this work, trying to find out what is going on with this toxic algae. Back into his life come his twin grandchildren, along with their step-aunt, and things are happening there. How do you kind of balance though the romance and the family side of this with the more thriller side of it?
It's a challenge.
I'll bet.
That's probably why it took me quite a long time to revise the book. When I first wrote this book, it was, I think, the second book I'd written. And so I knew what I wanted to do, but I probably, when I wrote that first draft, I didn't have the technical expertise to do justice to it. I had a lot of interest from Penguin early on in the history of this book, but it never quite fit into their marketing plans for a first-time author. They wanted it to be very clearly romance or thriller.
Yeah.
And how do you do something in between? I like the books that are in between.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of other people do too, but traditional publishers sometimes have a hard time figuring out how to market that for a first-time author, which I totally understand.
Because, how do you, label it? Do you label it a thriller,
Right.
romance?
Yeah, and that's the challenge of my life. And I think there needs to be a whole new category of environmental romance.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, it seems like an obvious thing. I don't understand why it doesn't exist.
Well,
but
you can be the first.
I think I am the first. I've looked to see if anyone else has done it. But anyway, after I wrote that first version, I didn't really, I think, have the expertise to weave those elements together as successfully as I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I put it aside, and I wrote another 5 books of various kinds. And it was only, as I say, recently, but this one was always kept calling me back. It was my favorite. I love the characters in it. And by the time I went back to it, I had a lot more practice and a lot more expertise. And at least people tell me that I succeeded at weaving them together. But it did take a lot of doing.
I'll bet. Did you have to outline it, or were you able to just kind of go at it?
Pardon?
Were you able to outline the plot and the story, or were you able to just go at it? Oh, you laugh at that. Oh, no.
I do laugh at that because that has always been my challenge. My background is I have an academic background, mm-hmm. and I have many years of experience writing analytical things. And I always outline everything. And I have a very detailed plan of attack, and then I go ahead and do it. And I find it doesn't work for me in fiction. Some people can do that, and I wish desperately I could. Desperately wish I could. But for whatever reason, it freezes my brain. Mm-hmm. So what I've ended up doing, but I'd already written this book and had to basically make it revise it to fit this. But what I basically found I have to do is just start with a couple of characters, a basic premise, and maybe 3 or 4 major events in the story. And that's about all. And then once I have that, that's enough, because it always changes as you work on the book. Mm-hmm. And because the characters come to life. And as the characters come to life, they have minds of their own. Mm-hmm. And so what you thought they might do when you were imagining them initially often is a little different.
I'll bet.
Yeah,
I'll bet.
so it's, I mean, that's the fun of the process, because it always is changing.
Oh, definitely. Let's talk about the characters. You have Becket, the twins, their step-aunt, Lainey Carmichael. How did you go about making the characters? Did you ever base them on folks that you know?
No, but I did have some ideas about bits and pieces of various people I've known over the course of my life, and probably those did influence them. Mm-hmm. But I guess really at the heart of it, I asked myself a what-if question. I had started with the Becket Fallon character, mm-hmm. so I knew quite a bit about him. I knew he was world famous. I knew he did television programs and so on. But in his personal life, he lived on this island in Narragansett Bay, had his own oceanographic institute, and basically didn't like to go anywhere else. He just concentrated on his work. Ooh. And I said to myself, if you have a person like that, what would happen if they're suddenly landed with a family problem that's equally urgent to the issues that they're dealing with in their work? Mm-hmm. We all deal with this life-work balance issue. And I think it's one that resonates. It certainly resonates with me, and I think it resonates with many, many people. And that's an underlying theme throughout this book, because you have saving the world, saving your family, and
you would think that one could kind of like cover the other.
yeah, you would think so, but I like to think of the book as, here you have this Becket Fallon character, and then he's got this problem that could decimate not only Narragansett Bay, but if it could expand beyond that along the East Coast. So a world-class, high-level problem. And then he's landed with this family problem, and the book is what happens after that.
Mm-hmm. How capable is Becket to handle this threat? Either like the science or the family one.
The science part, he's perfectly placed to deal with it, except for the fact that he doesn't suffer fools gladly, so he has a funding problem for his research.
which any researcher watching this now or listening to this podcast thinking, oh my God, yes, my entire life.
Right. And, of course, Lainey Carmichael, the other major character in the book, is a nonprofit expert, and therefore she barters with him to get his help with the family problem if she will help with the other. But again, I don't want to get too much into
no spoilers
to the details
No
of that, because that's part of the fun of the book, is surprises in regard to how each of them cope with that. But he certainly starts out the book the last person you would expect to be able to deal with the family issue. And there's a lot of reasons why, but you only gradually find out what those are.
Okay. Now, you have a lot of personal connection in this because you grew up on the Narragansett Bay.
I did.
How did that help you when it came to writing the book?
It helped so much. It was so interesting to me when I began work on this book, how many very concrete details I remembered without any thought. Everything from ferry rides and exactly how things work and the sounds you hear and the smells, all of that. Tying up a boat at a dock, all of the details of that. I remember as a child of 4 on my father's converted fishing boat, being so proud of myself because at 4 years old, I managed to go right around the gunnel and all the way to the front of the boat, all by myself. I was so excited. And so many of the details of life on the water, and particularly life on the water on Narragansett Bay, I spent my whole childhood doing, and so much of it permeates this book.
All right. What is next for you? Now, of course, you get this book out there. What is in the future for you?
I'm working on book 2 in this series.
Ooh.
It's a related book.
Okay.
It's not another story about Becket Fallon, although he will feature in it. But the main character of book 2 in this series is a woman named Joan Gamble, who is Beckett's assistant in this book. But she is the star of the book 2.
Was that always your plan to do like a sequel?
It was always my plan to do a series, but because I love reading series, and I think a lot of people do.
Oh yeah,
having
definitely.
familiar characters, familiar settings, but a new problem and a new challenge. Yeah, that's what people like, and that's what I like.
Excellent.
So that's what I'm working on.
All right. Now we should also note that 25% of all proceeds from the sale of the book go towards Save the Bay. Tell me about them and why you wanted to support them through the book.
Well, one of the surprises to me in the course of writing this book was how an organization very similar to Save the Bay, although I give it a different name, plays a key role in dealing with the black tide problem. And it seemed only appropriate, therefore, that an organization doing the kind of work they do that was instrumental in this book, they seemed the perfect partner. So I approached them when I was getting ready to put out the book, and they were happy to partner with me.
Excellent. Well, folks, definitely check out Elizabeth Devlin, DEVLIN.com for more information. Definitely get your copy, or come to the Rhode Island the Rhode Island Author Expo, Saturday, December 11th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Crown Plaza at Warwick, Rhode Island, and hope to see you there.